Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ben and this is the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. Hey family, I hope you're well wherever you are and you got that thin blue smoke rolling. This episode is part of my US road trip series where I travel through several states competing at the Houston World's Barbecue Championships and learning as much about barbecue as possible. The trip starts in Texas before going across to Louisiana and then up into Arkansas. It was a hell of a trip and I'm so excited to be able to share it with you. Before we get into it, I want to invite you to come join us at the Smoking Hot Confessions community on Facebook. It's a great place to continue the conversation. Also, make sure you get your free copy of my ebook, 27 Lessons Learned from Competition Barbecue. Jump on over to smokinghotconfessions.com/ebooks to get your copy now. Finally, however you listen to this episode, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. This will really help me spread that barbecue love. Alrighty everybody, this episode is part 2 of a pair of episodes where I turned the mic over to guest host Saffron from Bush Cooking while we were at the Houston Livestock Rodeo World's Barbecue Championships. This is a very special episode that stayed with me ever since we recorded these interviews. Saffron sits down with the lads from Operation BBQ Relief, a fantastic group of gentlemen who've taken the idea of doing good with their barbecues and ramped things up to 11. I really can't tell you any more than this without giving too much away. So settle in and check it out.
This is the internationally awarded Smoking Hot Confessions podcast with your host, Ben Arnott. How long's it been since your last confession?
A key player in the barbecue scene is Clean Heat Charcoal. Whether it's sponsoring festivals, supporting teams, or supplying the fuel for your backyard cookouts, Abel and his team work tirelessly to bring you the best barbecue experience. Their charcoal burns hot and it burns long. Clean Heat Charcoal embraces their global responsibilities as an industry leader, and all of their products are 100% natural, sustainable, and eco-friendly. The charcoal is made from an invasive species that is destroying valuable farmland in Namibia, and they offer locals employment opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have. Whether it's cooking burgers in your backyard or saving the planet, you can rest assured knowing it's made with Clean Heat. Clean Heat Charcoal is available all around Australia and will be hitting the US shortly. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram to learn more.
Saffron here from the Houston Livestock Rodeo Show, and I'm spending a little bit of time here in Operation BBQ Relief, and we've got the main man here ourselves, Stan Hayes. Hey, and welcome to Smoking Hot Confessions.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show.
So we just thought we'd start off a little bit about what is Operation BBQ Relief.
Absolutely. So Operation BBQ Relief is a disaster relief nonprofit organization here in the United States that goes out and serves hot barbecue meals to the people that have been affected by disasters and the first responders that come to communities to help them after the disaster strikes.
Yeah, so you're in Houston today because of the work that you did. So perhaps
Correct.
We can start with a little bit about that because that was a massive event.
Sure. So, last August with Hurricane Harvey hitting the coast of Texas, we came at the request of the mayor of Houston to come and help the community, help the first responders, help, feed his guys and the communities. We were here cooking for 11 days and did just over 370,000 meals from a parking lot downtown. We had a lot of, there's a lot of firsts in that deployment for us. Things like doing 50,000 meals in a day. Wow. To also, at the same time while we were doing this, we did airlifts into eastern Texas where we were putting hot meals and coolers and such onto Black Hawk helicopters, Chinook helicopters that were then airlifting those meals over into areas of East Texas that were cut off. Someplace that might be just over an hour drive, we're taking 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
Because they had to take back roads and just go all the way around all the flooding. So it was, a 30-minute helicopter ride, and they were able to get, thousands of meals in at one time.
So that's just amazing. Like, you hear these numbers. Like, how do your volunteers, make this happen?
So, we have some of the greatest sponsors out there that help us make this happen, right? I mean, you can't do it just by yourself. I mean, the volunteers are the lifeblood of the organization. But the sponsors, help make sure we have what needs to be cooked and really it comes down to, volunteers and the smokers, right? And we've got it down to pretty good science on the number of smokers we need, to serve X number of meals. So for every 3,000 or 4,000 meals, we can work the numbers to say, okay, we need 8 of those pits to be able to do that today, or we need 10 of these pits going to do that today. And so we're able to scale up from that, based upon that, knowing what the number is for the day on having the smokers going. And we've taken something that's, a science in backyard or science in competition, and then taking it a step further into the disaster side of being able to scale how many meals we can pull off of a pit at a time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And barbecue is one of those real homely, foods that make you sort of feel safe and happy. Absolutely.
I mean, you think about it, it's quintessential comfort food. I mean, the food is, it's all about the food, but it's not. It's also about what barbecue stands for, and I've not found it that it's changed anywhere, whether it's the United States, Canada, Australia, Africa, Europe. It is about friends. It's about good times, and it's about people coming together for sometimes for a good cause. Sometimes it's people coming together for a party, in our what we're doing, we're trying to bring that friendship and compassion during a disaster to an area of the country to provide that comfort meal. So when they're sitting down eating that, they're not thinking about what happened to their house, or they're not thinking about what happened, to their neighborhood. They're remembering the last neighborhood get-together where they were doing barbecue, where they were out grilling and everybody came together to help each other. And that's what it's all about. If they can forget about the bad that's happening or happened to them or currently happening to them, and they can start thinking about the positive side of things, what could be again, it gives them a sense of normalcy, even if it's just for 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. So people who are new to Operation BBQ Relief, perhaps we can talk about how this completely started, because everything you talked about just naturally happened that first time around.
So it was May 23rd of 2011, the Monday morning after the Joplin, Missouri tornado, one of the worst and deadliest tornadoes in U.S. history. Basically, I was trying to figure out a way of what I could do, and my wife really said, you should get the barbecue guys together and go. And that's really what she said. And so I started calling the guys that I had competed with or, helped me get into competition. And so what do you think? Oh, yeah, thinking the same thing. And you think about it, competition barbecue guys, what do? They go set up in a parking lot with minimal needs and turn out barbecue. And besides the 2 hours of turn-ins, everybody is friends. The camaraderie is amazing. It's a big family, the barbecue family, really. And so we went to that barbecue family and said, this is what we're doing. You want to come join us? And it just steamrolled. I mean, by the 24th, we were serving meals. By the 25th, we had major companies bringing in, hey, can you use this product? Can we help you? Can we... without even asking for it is, hey, we heard about you guys, or we saw you guys. What are you doing? Can we help? And, what we thought was going to be 4 or 5 days ended up being 11 days. What we thought would be 4,000 or 5,000 meals during that time ended up being 120,000 meals from a parking lot. And that's when we realized, during that 11 days that there's a gap. And the gap exists anywhere in the world that we've seen. And that gap is the time the disaster happens till the time the larger, more sustaining organizations, whether it's governmental, whether it's other larger nonprofits, or whether it's the local churches, civic groups, and everything can get their feet underneath them to really start helping the community. Some places it's 72 hours, sometimes it's 7 days before they can really get there and impact the community with a hot meal. Doesn't mean they're not trying to give them peanut butter and jelly or do what they can, but we're providing that hot barbecue meal and filling that gap at that time.
And so since that day, it's just kept growing and growing. So how many states in America now are you in?
So we've done disasters in 24 different states from 44 different disasters over the last almost 7 years now.
Yep. So that's the hurricanes, the tornadoes, and fire as well.
Wildfires, yeah. The flooding has been a big thing where we've just had rain events over the last few years that they'll stall out and jump. 2 years ago or a year and a half ago in Hammond, Louisiana. I mean, it just sat there and rained for days. And I mean, one community had over 29 inches of rain in less than 24 hours. I mean, that's an amazing amount of rain for anywhere in the country, let alone in a low-lying state like, Louisiana is.
Yeah. So looking forward, have you got more growth plans now, perhaps looking overseas and some of the complications with that? So,
the biggest challenges that we have is that we still all have part-time job, full-time jobs, and this is like our part-time job.
Yep.
So, the first order of business is we need to get some full-time people going, to run the organization, because as fast as it's grown, as much as we're doing, and as much as we want to continue to grow and to take that momentum, we've got to do that. But as far as looking into the future and looking at opportunities, the growth that we see is going internationally and probably working, looking at doing work both in Canada and Australia. Would be, are probably our two closest, because they model the United States philanthropy and the way they respond more so than any other place in the country. Or the world. From there, we'll look at it. Great Britain has a great culture in that, and even parts of Europe are getting to that point. But in some parts of the world, what we do in the philanthropy and the giving back and the donation side of things don't always play together.
Yeah. So one of the things I really like about Operation BBQ Relief is how much of a donation, a financial donation, actually makes it to the
Sure.
people on the ground. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, the way we do it is, I won't say it's unique to us, but, when somebody makes a donation online to the organization, that donation, unless it is, directed somewhere to a corpus fund or something like that they can do, the default is for disaster relief. So we take that money and we put it to disaster relief. When we do a fundraiser, we don't take any money out of that to do a fundraiser. Fundraising money is always brought on from whether it's selling swag from our swag shop on our website, things that we've done at different events that we raise money for to help do more events. What we try to do is we don't want to take money that's to feed people to go out and do the Houston Livestock, barbecue. We want to take that out of our fundraising account, because this is awareness. This is about growing the organization and turning it, bringing in more volunteers, more donors, and getting more people to learn about the organization.
So perhaps some of the people interested in listening today would be interested.
Sure.
So what's the web page and
Sure.
how's the best way for them to help?
So we've simplified things. It's as easy as now to go to our website is obr.org. Just obr.org is the website, and on there, up at the top, there's volunteer. That's the first place you can go if you can volunteer to help. The big thing is that there's so many disasters that happen that we just can't respond to because they're so small. To roll the equipment and do things for a couple hundred meals doesn't make sense, financially, and it's not a good steward of that money. But if we have a barbecue team, or we have a restaurant or a caterer in that area that's willing to do that, I'd rather give the money to them to go help that community, because just because it's a small community doesn't mean they don't have just as great a need. But to do that, we have to know where people are, and the only way we can know where they are and that they're interested is to volunteer and register on our website. So that's the first place. So the second thing is there's just a donate button there. Our big thing is don't wait till there's a disaster to donate, though. If you want to donate by going and setting, a monthly donation and say, yes, I want to donate monthly, and, I'm just going to, instead of getting $100 when the disaster happens, to help, we're going to give $10 a month, whatever it is, or divide it out and, to spread it out. It helps them because they can, they know what's happening with their money, over time, and they don't have to then come out of pocket right at the time of a disaster. And then we can also look at what's coming in, because it gets scary sometimes during a disaster when we're laying out tens of thousands of dollars on food, equipment, on fuel, and everything that we're doing when we're going out on one of these, to rely that those donations are going to come in to continue that, because the bank account is only so big.
Yep.
And so, for that, those are the two big things. And then, if somebody's listening to the show and they're a company and they're like, they love what we do, or, there's corporate sponsorship opportunities and opportunities for companies to get involved. I mean, one of the biggest supporters that we have is a large pork producer in the United States called Seaboard Foods. And Seaboard, not only do they donate the product, they've donated money, and we've got some things in the works that'll probably come out here probably in the next 45 days with them. But the big thing is that they've brought out, at different events and different days of giving to help and give back to communities, they've allowed their employees time off paid to come and volunteer.
Oh, that's excellent.
And so there's opportunities for a company to give back in many more ways than just money and product.
So that's amazing. So how about we close this out? So
Sure.
You've talked a lot about the things, just with, I'm sure that it's a lot of work and everything. Perhaps a recent call out where you've been on the ground. You can
Sure.
share a story, that moment where you're like, this is all worth it.
Yeah, so I will actually give, it's an old one but a new one. 2 years ago on Memorial Day was historic flooding just down the road here in Wimberley, Texas, Central Texas, just south of Austin. And the Blanco River, which is normally a pretty tame river, was miles outside of its bank because of this historic flooding and rains there. We received a very nice note and a donation from a family, or I should say families, who lost members of their family in that flooding, and to the point that they've not found a few of them. And to have somebody 2 years almost down the road come to you and say, what you did for our community, what those meals meant for us and our community, is beyond what we can ever repay you. Here's a donation on the behalf of our family members that were lost. To me, that is everything of why we do what we do. It doesn't, you don't always see those people that you're impacting. In fact, a lot of times you don't see that meal get delivered to that house. You don't see the tears, the anguish on their faces. But when you get something in writing like that just sort of paints that picture of the anguish that family's gone through in losing loved ones, but recognizing the work that our volunteers did to help the communities, try to get back to normal. It's posted on our Facebook page, which is just, Facebook.com/Operation BBQ Relief, and you can see the letter and read it. I guarantee you, there's not too many people that are going to read that and then not Google it to find out who that family was.
Thank you so much, Stan. It's been wonderful chatting with you today.
Thank you very much for letting me, spend some time with you guys today.
Thank you. And today I'm here with William.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. So William's an on-the-ground volunteer for OBR, and I just was interested in hearing a little bit about your story.
Well, yeah, I started off with OBR. Well, I actually met OBR when we competed at the Memphis in May competition, and I met Stan Hayes and started learning about the organization and what they did, and it kind of interested me. It just so happened that when Hurricane Harvey hit here in Houston, I actually live here in Houston, and when Hurricane Harvey hit, I found out that they were coming down, and my house had got some water in it, and my parents' 2 houses got flooded, and there was nothing really I could do. So when I found out Stan and them were here, I went out and did my first deployment and actually helped them out.
So your house was flooded and you were actually on the ground volunteering. That's
Yes.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was excuse me, because it brings up a lot of emotion. It's hard. when you see people going through the things that they went through, and to be involved in that, you know, to be able to give back and feed people. Oh, you gotta, it's hard. But I'd rather have been out there helping the people, doing what I was doing with the OBR, because I could rebuild later. You know, people needed us then, now. So it was our mission to be out there and to feed as many people, first responders, volunteers. I mean, just to see police officers and firefighters come up to us and tell us they hadn't had a hot meal in days. It was just so touching. And for me, it was a life-changing experience. I'd do it over and over again if I could. You know, it's just, of course, I rebuilt already. You know, I got my house back up and going and things like that. But when I found out they were coming here to the rodeo, I had to be a part of it. So, yeah. Whew. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I mean, that's an amazing story, and it's worth sharing, and it's worth people hearing and knowing, you know, the impact that this type of volunteering can do. And a lot of people just see this on the news, and to actually be on the ground, it's good for them to understand.
I actually got to go out to some of the deployments when we were delivering the meals to the people, and just to see them out there, you know, and thanking us for what we were doing. Because, I mean, I lost little, but other people in the city lost so much. I mean, you could see as we drove through the neighborhoods, the devastation that the storm had caused, and to see everybody's house outside on the curb. I mean, it's just so touching, you know, and to see kids telling us thank you just for a hot meal. I mean, that's just so hard, but it gives people hope, you know, that they'll be able to rebuild. And you know, an organization like this can come in during a natural disaster and do so much for people that don't have nothing at all.
That's amazing. Can you tell me a little bit about what your average day on deployment might look like, just so people can understand how much work's actually going into each of those meals?
Yeah, well, the average day is getting up early at 5 o'clock in the morning and getting onto site, getting everything prepared. You know, we got a lot of meat that we have to prepare, seasoned, cut up, and get the pits lit up. A majority of it, what I usually do on a deployment is I actually drive around and pick up supplies, propane, any kind of stuff that we need from Sam's Club or Walmart, you know, wherever grants that we get in, that we can actually go into the store and they give us the product that we need. I pick that up and drive around and gather everything that's needed for the operation. When I get back, it's helping make plates, you know, putting everything into cambros and loading it in vehicles. By the end of the day, we're looking at, you know, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and we're done, you know, getting ready to put the meat on for the next round. And then it's off to bed and then back up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do it all over again.
Yeah, so that's pretty intense.
Yeah, it takes a lot out of you. I mean, it's real, it's work. And but you know, it's the pure adrenaline of, you know, just helping somebody and seeing. I think when we see people and then you can see it in their face that they're thankful, and I think that's what keeps us going. Is just that pure adrenaline of doing what's right. You know, it's the right thing to do, and that's what keeps me going.
It's wonderful that you've shared your story with us today, and it's been really good to see a different perspective and all the different people who have different roles in OBR talking to us today.
Yeah, a lot of you know, the volunteers for OBR, they all have their different experiences, and they've all dealt with things that, you know, different kind of disasters that they might have gone through, and just like me, you know, just it was a bad storm, and you know, it affected thousands, and there's still people rebuilding here in the city. I mean, it's almost, you know, it's almost going to be a year later, and there's still parts of the city that are still there's trash still out there in piles. You know, it's going to take a long time to rebuild, but it's, you know, it'll get back together. Houston's a strong city, and, you know, everybody life will go on.
Thank you so much. And I wish you luck with all the events that are happening at the Livestock Show for OBR. I know you're doing some stuff for the police tonight.
Yes. Yeah. We have the city council, I believe, are coming in, and we have some first responders that will be coming in later on this evening.
That's excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saffron.
This is Sterling Smith from Loot and Moody Barbecue, and you're listening to Smoking Hot Confessions.
Make no mistake, beef is king. Ask any competitor on the circuit, and the trophy they want most of all is the brisket. And you won't find better brisket than Black Angus Reserve. Black Angus Reserve is the leading brisket brand in Australia, and it's easy to see why. It's verified Black Angus, which has been grain-fed for a minimum of 150 days, with a deliciously high marbling content. These briskets are so good that Black Angus Reserve are willing to put their money where their mouth is. They sponsor multiple Grand Champion winning team Manning Valley Natural Smokers, who've won many trophies using their briskets. Not just that, but Manning Valley took these briskets to the World's Barbecue Championships in Houston and took out second place in the world. To get yours, hit up their Black Angus Reserve page on Facebook now.
I've got with me Mark Lambert from Operation BBQ Relief. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
So I believe you're pretty good at competition barbecue. Perhaps we could start there.
Yeah, we've been at competition barbecue for about 22 years. We started competition barbecue kind of as didn't really mean to get into it. Worked for a company that had a large hospitality booth at Memphis MA, and after a couple of years being involved in just the hospitality, not even cooking, the budget was pulled, and everyone kind of already just had it in their veins and was hooked on it. So a bunch of us that were hooked on it decided we were going to keep going and pulled our money and kept cooking, and eventually started winning. So
yeah.
it took a few years to get away from just being the hospitality and party team to taking it somewhat serious, and we just took it somewhat serious and made it up to 9th place. And when we actually started taking it really serious, we started winning and won overall Memphis MA honors twice, and first place with shoulder 4 times, twice with second, and third 1 time. So we've been fortunate.
And that's just Memphis in May.
Yeah.
American Royals been an interesting event for you guys too?
Yeah, I started cooking KCBS in 2005, I guess, and exploring KCBS because you really saw the rise of it. You saw more popularity and more increase in KCBS, so started investigating that and learning how to cook a brisket. First time we ever went to the Royal. So, yeah, we know how to cook ribs, we know how to cook pork, and chicken, yeah, no big deal. We know how to do that too. We didn't pay much attention. But the first year we competed at the Royal, if we would have known how to cook brisket, we would have won the whole thing. We made 7th overall, and we were like 88th in brisket.
Oh, wow.
And if we figured if we'd have made the top 10, we would have won the Royal the first time we ever cooked it.
Oh, wow, that's cool. So competition barbecue background, the big barbecue family, and that led you into Operation BBQ Relief?
Yeah, barbecue family is just a huge network of friends, and everybody's really, it's kind of weird. I see that many people really, really passionate about model airplanes. I mean, they do it. My mic just kind of dripped on me there. I'm going to have to stand up a little taller. So, I don't know. You see people passionate about their hobbies within barbecue. It just seems that people take it a step further and really wrap their arms around barbecue and the people, and, you make a whole other family out of it. And, whenever we started seeing Operation BBQ Relief after the tornadoes in Joplin, we all just everyone starts talking about it, kind of like when someone uses a new rub or a new sauce, there's talk about what are they doing, how are they doing, how are they using that. And so everyone starts really talking about what's happened at Operation BBQ Relief, and it's just kind of one of those things that spreads like a virus that everyone they want to know more and more about it. And once you learn more about it and you go and be a part of it, it's kind of like I said, we got hooked on competition barbecue, not really expecting it, but you investigate it far enough and you actually go and experience it and you're hooked. It's one of those things when you decide in life what your gifts are and how to use those gifts and how to give those and where to give them and where your time is best spent, serving others. You kind of figure out what gifts you have and what best way to use them. And I just felt like Operation BBQ Relief was that perfect fit. It was the way for me to give the gifts that I have.
So you're a state lead now. So what's a state lead do?
State leads are involved with all of your state disaster organizations. What they call VOAD is one of the main ones, and they're bigger in some states than others. But VOAD is a Volunteers Active in Disaster. I think that's right, something like that. But it's a volunteer organization for disaster relief companies to come together and help one another, learn from one another. They have a conference. Usually, a lot of them will have meetings. Some do nothing, like Mississippi. They do nothing. They have a website and they act like they do things, but they do nothing. So, in some states, like Arkansas, they have regular meetings. They're all different. They're all groups of different companies, and some have state affiliations, and some are just completely independent. In Mississippi, they're all, there's a FEMA organization, some power companies, people like that, and mitigation companies. But it really doesn't seem like be a tight-knit group. But the whole thing is you're charged to help foster people to volunteer and donate in your state.
So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about what it's like when you actually respond, like on the ground, you're there, chaos ensues. How does it come together? It's
almost like going into battle. If it feels like whenever you're deploying, because everyone, depending on the state you're in, the state lead is charged first and foremost. If they can find a place to deploy, a place to set up home base, then they generally have more connections in their home state. So that's the first thing, is to start looking for places. And we work with like the Baptist associations to try to find a church. The church has a lot of resources, not just buildings and equipment, but the congregation. They're charged to give to the community and to mission to the community. So it's a good opportunity for them to go out and mission at the same time while helping feed people. So working with the church is one of the first things we look for, or a large convention centers, things like that that are adjacent to the affected area. A lot of times those big community centers, house people that are displaced from their homes or whatever. So trying to find where we're going to go first and foremost is the craziest thing ever, because people from all over the country that are involved with OBR are all of a sudden calling on every connection they have in that area to try to find the best place to go and be the most effective. And then once we halfway find a place, and I mean not even nail it down and tell people we're coming or know exactly where we're going, people are on the road. We don't even know where we're going.
Yep.
And so you get close, and by the time we get close, we get an idea of exactly where we're going. And then once you actually get there, it's like you've ever walked and kicked over an anthill, just there you go everywhere. And so when we show up, it's kind of like that. Usually we've got some lights and generators on the ground, reefer trucks of food and number 10 cans and water. And usually there's people already there expecting us. And so it's just like all hands on deck, everything pulled out of the trailers, usually throwing stuff on the cookers as fast as you can, and start notifying, making sure that all of the people in the area are notifying everyone they're there, so we can make sure and start getting meal counts for the next day. It's just ramp up just as quick as you can to figure out at what level we're going to have to produce. And usually it starts out, may start out 2,000 meals. The next day it might go to 12,000 meals. The next day it might go to 28,000 meals. And the next day it may go to 40,000 meals. And it may sustain that for, if it's a small deployment, it'll probably usually never get over 11,000 meals. A big one, it may get up to 50,000 and stay there for a couple days and trail off. And we'll stay there as long as there's a viable need. I mean, when people start moving back into their homes and you would think that there's not a need anymore, it sometimes gets worse, because we not only feed the victims of the natural disaster, people displaced, but the responders that are there, helping them get back on their feet, mitigate damage, trash out. So the need stays on for a while there. Our goal, it seems like, from what I've been a part of, is to get in there quick, make sure that we provide some level of comfort during the hardest, sometimes you would think the hardest part of it, and then, people like Salvation Army sustain it for a little bit longer while after we leave, once the numbers kind of fall off. When the people are really, I don't want to call refugees, if you will, but a lot of times that's what it amounts to. People have to flee the affected areas where their homes are blown over, completely gone, or flooded. Then, when people are in huge numbers of people in one area, they expect, that's what we're there. We're there to feed a bunch of people as fast as we can and give them not just a sandwich, but a good hot meal,
So let's talk a little bit more about that hot meal. What does it typically look like?
We're Operation BBQ Relief, and it's generally it's barbecue focused. We tried as best we can to have some variance in the proteins and the sides that we do. And, if you're imagine if you were at a community center and you're out of your home for 5 days and you had a pulled pork sandwich for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you'd start getting tired of pulled pork. So we've learned to try to maybe do a teriyaki chicken and some like a mock vegetable fried rice. And we've tried to do like hamburger steak with gravy and mashed potatoes. Anything that we can do on a big outdoor rotisserie smoker, we've been trying new things and new techniques and new proteins to try to make sure that we provide a little variance other than our traditional things like pulled pork, roasted pork loin. We do beef shoulder clod, beef chuck, brisket, hamburgers. I mean, most of the stuff we do, we try to do things that we can load in a pit, let them cook for some amount of time, and feed a huge number of people with what we've got. Of course, then we have one camp that does nothing but proteins and run them on a rotisserie, big, huge barbecue pits where we're cooking protein for 30,000 people. But another whole camp is dedicated to side items that turns nothing but, things like green beans and peas and corn and mashed potatoes and like chili mac and stuff like that. So we try to provide a hot protein and a really good hot side along with it, some bread and a drink. And it seems like when we first show up, we'll provide a certain number of individual meals, and we'll pack them in little clamshells, and we'll take them out in the field and pass them out. And that's where you see the most reward. It's where you really get a feeling for you're doing something good and how much it's appreciated. And then as it builds, it gets to the point that we have to provide bulk boxes of meals to shelters. And we'll provide a huge box of meals with 400 servings of protein and 800 servings of sides, and we'll deliver that to a place that's that has to serve 4,000 meals for lunch. So it varies. When we get to actually hand one single meal to one person in need, that's where you really feel it and it hits home.
So do you have one personal on the ground story that really sticks with you and keeps you motivated?
Yeah. We were at Sam's Club in Denham Springs, Louisiana. And so a lot of these people at Sam's Club in the surrounding area, they had 8 feet of water at the road. Where you exit onto Sam's Club, there was 8 foot of water at the intersection. So when you drove down this road, anyone in that area had nothing, zero. They had no belongings except where they packed in their car and got out of there with. So when the waters receded and they were coming back, well, at Sam's Club, you had people like FEMA and Tide Loads of Hope and people that were other relief companies there providing, washing people's clothes or passing out water or ice or filling out FEMA forms, things like that. Well, we had this huge line of people coming through, and so many of those people that came through, the only thing that they had in this world was what was in their car. And when they drive up and they're crying, and they're just, overwhelmed by what everyone in the parking lot's already done for them. And they're crying, and, you hand them something, and they hug you. And so we have, a dozen people drove through, and we're handing them meals, and they just get out of the car, and they crying, and they give you a hug. And so that's where the impact really is that people that have this need, and they're so overwhelmed by people taking time out of their lives to go and help them. And that's that's to me, there's one probably in particular, but there were 40 or 50 different people that came through. We were putting meals in their windows, and they were driving through, and it was overwhelming. It really, really was.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories and some more information with Operation BBQ Relief today, and all the best in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Got a project you'd like to work on with the SHC team? Shoot Ben an email on ben@smokinghotconfessions.com and let's have a conversation.
Buying an outdoor cooker can be confusing. Something for low and slow, something for roasting, a pizza oven. What about baking? The JAGRD Woodfired smoker does all of these things. The question is, how? Firstly, the entire smoker is fully insulated. The firebox is insulated with kiln-grade bricks, and there are more on the cooking chamber floor, doubling as a pizza stone. The cooking chamber is then insulated with a 6cm or 2.5 inch insulation blanket, and the whole thing is made from double-walled 6mm steel. This means that the JAGRD can get up to 600 degrees Fahrenheit in under 30 minutes, sit at low and slow temperatures using very little fuel, and will even sit well under 200 degrees Fahrenheit for cold smoking. Founded in 2014, JAGRD is proudly Australian owned and manufactured, based in Western Australia and ships all across the country. Head on over to jagrdwoodfired.com.au, spelled JAGRD, to learn more.
And I've got Jerry here from Operation BBQ Relief.
Hello. How are you? I'm great.
So
great.
We've spoken to a few people today with a background from barbecue and competition barbecue to join Operation BBQ Relief. I believe your story is a little bit different.
It is. I came in because my family, we lost our home on April 27th of 2011, and we had such an outpouring of wonderful people bringing food to us, restaurants, people bringing us toiletries, toothpaste. Oh my God, that was the best. There was so many things that people brought us over the following 6, 8, 10 days as we recovered, picking things out of the rubble from our home. And it always had a question in the back of my mind as to where did this come from? How did this outpouring come to us every day that it just was there? We never had to worry about a meal. We never had to worry about, and we were touched deeply. So when Moore, Oklahoma happened, the tornado there, a friend of mine, Patrick Banks, was involved with Operation BBQ Relief. I had called him and asked if they were going to go out to Moore, Oklahoma, because I knew that's what the organization was doing. And they were very young at the time, very small, and kind of getting their legs under them at the time. Mm-hmm. So I left work, drove home, packed a bag, told my wife I'll see you in a week or two, whenever, and I left. And it was just that quick. We drove all night to get to Moore, Oklahoma, and I spent the next 10 days there with Operation BBQ Relief, preparing meals for those tornado victims and hearing their stories and talking to those people and sharing my story with their story, and I could really get on that level. And it was literally a religious experience for me. It changed me. I've been on 7 different deployments, including that one, and including Houston last year, South Florida last year, Hammond, Louisiana the year before that, Fayetteville, North Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. And it's grown to be a passion of mine. The Operation BBQ Relief is very welcoming. You don't have to be a barbecue professional, own a restaurant, have a barbecue team. They'll welcome you in if you're willing to work hard and donate your time and do it with a giving heart. And it was that's where I'm at.
So do you have a role in Operation BBQ Relief?
I do. I'm the Alabama state lead for Operation BBQ Relief. And what that means is I'm in contact with FEMA. I'm in contact with the Red Cross. I'm in contact with Alabama VOAD, and that's Voluntary Organizations Active in Deployment. That's the acronym for it, is VOAD. And those are names and numbers and email addresses and people you contact and reach out to in the event of a hurricane coming up through the Gulf or an event of another outbreak of tornadoes. So it gives me the ability to call these individuals, these people who are more deeply involved at different state levels and government levels, and get involved from there and communicate to Operation BBQ Relief what is available as far as what our need is. So if we need to prepare, or the state needs 1,000 meals a day or 10,000 meals a day or 50,000 meals a day, I can communicate that back and assemble the teams to go to a particular location and service that need.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people too, because they see Operation BBQ Relief on the ground and they forget that there's a lot of communications and links into the government and FEMA and rules and different pieces that you're involved in.
You're exactly right, and that's what interested me so much. It wasn't just the food that got to the house. I mean, that was really a huge blessing, but it's how did this happen? You can't just put together these meals and get them in the. I didn't live on the main road where it was just here. You had to work to get to my house, and you had to really want to. You had to. It wasn't that easy. So it took the organizational skills of the Red Cross at the time and the local churches at the time and other local organizations and restaurants and so forth to make that happen. But it's how. And then when I got involved with Operation BBQ Relief, I really started seeing the inner workings and how the sausage is made, so to speak, the behind the scenes as to what really goes into it. And events like we're at today here at the in Houston are important. It gets our name out there. It lends to our credibility and our mission, and our mission remains the same, and it always has and always will. And that's serving that one family, that one need out there. That's hasn't had a meal in a day or 2 or 5 or 10, that's lost everything, and they're in total despair, and they don't know what to do next. They don't know where to turn. We're there for them, and it's a great feeling.
It's amazing. So with the deployments on the ground, when you're actually on the ground, how does that all come together?
Wow, what a question.
Remembering it's a short interview.
Well, yes. In short, we find after a storm happens, the following day or that afternoon or whatever, we start communicating with local government, municipalities, or Red Cross, FEMA, etc., and finding out what the need is, how much damage there is, how many people are in shelters, how much support's going to be there as far as other volunteers going down to be first responders, be it the power line companies or the Red Cross or insurance companies, whoever goes in to take care of those in need. And we find a facility, often a church or a parking lot. It's been at a sporting goods parking lot before, or a Walmart parking lot, just big enough to handle our setup. And we take a pretty big footprint, and we take in as many as we need to cook the amount of meals and so forth that they're calling for. And we get in there and we set up, and we have great vendors from like Barbecue Charcoal, Blue Rhino, Sunbelt Rentals, Yeti Coolers, Old Hickory, Butterball, all these vendors that supply us with donated food or substantially discounted pricing, where we can buy it with cash donations. And we start opening cans of vegetables, and we start cooking from barbecue meat, pork shoulders and so forth, to pork loins. Like I said, Butterball turkeys. The turkey's been fabulous. A lot of chicken, Tyson Foods, and different other companies, and I hate that I'm forgetting 1 or 2 or 10, but too many to remember. But without those, we couldn't make it work.
So the actual people on the ground, are they normally the same people moving from event to event, or do you get a lot of just local people come in to help you?
Great question. It's actually both. There's a core of people in Operation BBQ Relief, from Stan and Will, the founders of it, and some of the senior management who actually do some of the organization and that with our vendors and our suppliers. And wherever we go, we put out the word for people to come and volunteer. Different church groups will offer help. Hey, what can we do? How many people do you need? When do you need them? And so we tell them, and they're there. And that's really the miracle of it, is coming together as a community, as a country, and taking care of that need. I always say it's the America that I know. It's the America that we know. It takes all politics out. It takes everything out. It's let's take care of each other, feed each other, clothe each other, and serve them as they need to be, as God leads us to do.
Thank you. So I've been closing out each discussion with a fairly recent personal story while you're deployed on what keeps you motivated and coming back and helping more. This is hard because you've got such a big personal story to start with.
Everything goes back to that.
Yeah.
You know, we might get off of our core mission on a certain day or something if we're servicing somebody or having an event to service people like we're doing this evening with the policemen and the firemen and the local government officials that we're doing here tonight. That's not our core mission. It's important because those contacts and those communications that help us drive the funding that it takes to keep us viable are very important. Without that, we couldn't exist. But it's the serving that one family, serving that one need, or serving that one community that really drives us. And the stories you hear from people are what drives our passion. Their stories do.
Thank you so much for talking to us today, and all the best with Operation BBQ Relief moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Saffron.
And we've got Duke joining us now. How are you, Duke?
I'm doing real good. Appreciate it.
So, Duke, I hear that you are the man on the ground when it comes to side dishes. Is this correct?
Well, I appreciate that. I feel like I do a good job at what I do. It's one of my strengths that I do have. My occupation is in construction, doing shutdown work, which puts us in a situation that we have to do a lot of work in a short period of time. So, bar all the consequences or weather conditions, whatever we're against, that's kind of how my strengths come in.
So what would a normal side dish preparation look like on the ground, like when you get there?
Well, we do several sides. We've done, especially when we was here in Houston, we did several different things: the green beans, the corn, the potatoes. We do the red beans and rice, and then we had some different things, collards. We had a lot of different variations here, carrots, just the different things that was available for us. Most of the time, availability is much like beans or corn. So, but here we had a lot more variety of coming in from our food suppliers and volunteers that was donating all that to us.
So do you ever find yourself in the position where you've just got some ingredients and you're looking at it like, how are we going to get this over the line today?
Sure. When some of the stuff comes in, and that's some of the stuff I try to look at, it's kind of like, hey, we might not be able to produce it that day. We look at it for the next day because, depending on how much stress or how much time frame we're under, we try to prepare ourselves for the next day, making sure we have the right ingredients for all this.
So let's talk about your team that you have on the ground. Is that normally a core group you have, or do you have locals that come in and help as well?
Well, there's three of us that travel together. Basically, Jerry that you just interviewed, he travels with me, and another guy, Jeremy, he's a maintenance guy that works for me, and that's the three that loads up from our hometown and comes and been on most all the deployments with us since I've started, and I started in 2010. So.
Can you tell me what a standard sort of day looks like?
A standard sort of day looks like trying to figure out what the meal count is from who's in charge on the site. And then, for me, for the most of the time on the average day, I'm up at 5 or 6 o'clock preparing myself for that day. And it's basically checking the inventory, making sure we got enough supplies for the day, making sure that letting the volunteer coordinator know how many volunteers we need based on our meal count. And our meal count can be anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000 a day, depending on, here in Houston, we was able to do 47,000, which was a record for us out of my kitchen alone. So anyway.
So that's pretty amazing, like to be able to bring everyone together like that.
Oh yeah, it's the organization has meant a lot to me as far as bringing everybody together and being kind of more like organized chaos, you know, and everybody is here for the same. It's kind of like we forget our differences and we're here to make a difference in people's life, and we care about who gets fed, you know.
So do you get to spend much time actually interacting with the people who are getting your food?
No, ma'am, not normally. We don't. We have in some of our deployments when we work a line, but like on this level here when we was in Houston, we didn't because our count was so high. You know, our meal count was records, you know.
So I heard that Houston was the first time you used airlift to get food in.
That's correct. That's pretty exciting for us. Actually, it was, I had to go home on the day we did the airlift, but I prepared all the food, had to go home for a funeral, and when I got home, I was watching the news, and all that was on the news in the airlift, so that was pretty exciting to know I was a part of that and still had stuff that I still had to deal with at home. So I think it's a great opportunity to be able to, with the people that supported us to make the airlifts, number one. So.
Yeah, that was amazing to watch. I watched I almost became addicted to the OBR Facebook page while that was going on because I was just continually amazed with what was happening and the social media and getting people involved and getting the donations so we could keep it happening. So if there's people listening today that are thinking about getting involved on the ground, what would you suggest to them?
I found it to be the most peaceful thing in my heart as far as serving and serving with no expectations, nothing in return. And as far as getting involved, it's just as simple as signing up on the website or finding somebody that's already affiliated with OBR and trying to talk to them and finding how to get connected. And there's so many needs here. I mean, I am a good ground man and I'm able to take care of a lot of things, but the reality too, we couldn't do it without the other volunteers taking care of everything that goes along with it, washing the dishes, getting the garbage cleaned up, prepping for the next day, you know, packaging, wrapping. It's just I just think it's, if you've got any willingness at all, I think you'll be very blessed in the long run.
So I've been ending each of the interviews with an on-the-ground personal story, which just reminded them that they were doing the right thing, that they think about, that touches their heart, that keeps them going. Do you have one like that to share?
As far as probably the most emotional story that I can share that I've experienced is when I was in Moore, Oklahoma. We was feeding out there. Of course, it was a tornado there. We was right in the heart of where all that was happening. We were real close to the school system. And we had kids coming up that was feeding that basically they was telling us how their school got blown away, their friends got killed, their teachers got killed, and how their teachers provided protection for them, the students, in all that. And then, you know, that's devastating enough within itself, but after they're sitting down talking, it's like, and we ain't got no car or no home to go to. You know, their car and home got to go. So that was probably the most devastating. I worked for 10 days on the ground, left and went home, and I was totally exhausted. It felt like I couldn't produce enough. And when I got home, I felt like, because I'm so blessed at home, that I felt guilty that I wasn't able to do enough. That's because the need's so desperate.
Thank you so much for sharing your story today, Duke, and okay. All the best.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Well, family, thanks for stopping by. I'm sure you learned as much here as I did. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review, and until next time, take care of each other and keep on queuing.
Thanks for listening to the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. Head on over to smokinghotconfessions.com for recipes, tips, and Ben's own confessions.